Hello, this is Dana and welcome to the Orchid Hut. Thank you so much for taking some of your time today to watch one of my videos. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because we're going to be talking about my dirt orchids, or rather the ones that grow in the ground and are considered terrestrial. And I actually have 3 of these in my collection. One that I will show you at the very end of this video, I've probably had for maybe 10 years or so. It has been, growing outside this entire time, but I have a new idea for my ground orchids. There's another one growing in the landscape outside, and then the one in this pot was purchased last spring, and we will look at it first, and then I'll take the camera outside and show you the other 2 that are planted in the landscape. So my idea for these ground orchids is to transfer them to a pot. Now I have 2 pots like this one. They're very large and they have nice holes in them so that the roots can have air, and they have really good drainage, and I have 2 like this. And my idea was to put the 2 smaller ground orchids in one and then take the other larger one that's growing in the landscape and put it in the other pot. And I have this idea that because they're growing in clay soil in my landscape, that's probably just not their preference. So I've purchased a couple of bags of this Terrestrial Orchid bark mix from Repot, and I will be putting this in the 2 large pots when I transplant or move the ground orchids. So let's have a look at the first one. I could bring this one in because it was still growing in the nursery pot from last year. It's called Ground Orchid Blatilla striata, and I'll try to get the camera to focus on that. And I noticed just the other day that, even though the plant from last year had died back when it got really warm at the end of the summer, it is now putting 2 new green sprouts from the rhizome. And if you dig down in the pot a little bit, you can see that the rhizome from last year is still green right down here. So I want to get this out of this pot and get it moved into one of the decorative pots so that I can have it on the patio. So this is the first example, and what I'll do next is I'll take the camera off of the tripod and take it outside. I hope it's not too wobbly, and we'll look at the 2 that are planted in the landscape. I'll be right back. Okay, so the second ground orchid that I want to show you is growing in the landscape outside. It's been planted here for maybe 3 or 4 years, but it seems to be getting a little bit choked out by some of the other ground cover that's growing around it, and it seemed to do a bit better when I first planted it, and it got a little bit more sun in the spring. So this is a really shaded area now. And if I move this to a pot, I'll have a little bit better options for moving it around in the yard to see what it prefers. Let me pull the tag. This one was kind of difficult to find. I had to get all of the dried leaves off the top. And this one is Blatilla Kate, Terrestrial Orchid. So hopefully the camera is focusing on that. And it really is just these 4 small leaves. So this is one right here, and then this is the other right here. So I'll have to be really careful when I dig around this area to give it enough margin so that I'm able to get that whole rhizome. Very, very small right there. Okay, let's have a look at the third one. Okay, so the third ground orchid is growing right here. This one gets a bit more winter sun, but again in the spring it's a bit more in the shade, and it is a little bit covered up by this really large ligularia that's growing right beside it. And this one, again, you know, did well the first couple of years that it was planted here, but now I really just don't think that it's enjoying the clay soil that it's growing in. And this is the larger of the three that I have, and there's one plant here, and then there's one right behind right here. And again, I'll just have to be really careful when I dig those up. And this is going to be my winter outdoor orchid project, to get all of these into pots so that I have a little bit more of a way to kind of control where they're placed, how much water they get, and hopefully they'll like that Repot Me terrestrial potting mix a lot better than just being planted in the ground. So when I get these dug up and actually have an opportunity to put them in the pot that I showed you at the beginning of the video, I will make sure to film the repotting. It's a little bit too cold outside for me to do this today. I know it looks bright and sunny, but the temperature is in the upper 40 degrees and there's a bit of a wind. So I think I want to wait for a slightly warmer day, and I'll be sure to video that when I'm putting them in the clay pot that I showed you. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up, and the subscribe button will be coming up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. See you next time.